think that exploring a city, you can two-prong it. You can do the POC and you're going there to get the proof of concept. But if you're there somewhere for a year and like when you looked at those numbers and you went, okay, well, what if you fell in love with the city during that year?
Yeah.
So then instead of talking to a realtor that is going to be trying to talk you out of renting, like we have our unicorns all the time. They're like, cool, let me know when you're here or help them get a long-term rental.
Right.
Then when they're there, they sit down and go, okay, 12-month plan. What if we don't buy? Cool. You have a little extra money in your savings account.
Mariette's on the move. What? Mariette's on the move. Again? Mariette's on the move.
Not anymore. I'm Mariette of Mariette's on the Move, and I'm finally setting roots back in Sweet Home Chicago. But if you're thinking about moving, I'm on it. I've moved 20 times in the last 24 years to 6 of America's top cities, and boy, do I have some stories for you. I'll be doing some on-air coaching and, of course, giving you my tips, tricks, and scams to avoid. This is the Moving Tips and Tricks podcast. Now, let's get moving.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I have a treat for you today. I have an interview. So I'm changing the format of the podcast. We're going to do mostly solo episodes, but only super strategic interviews, and this is one of them. I get asked about first-time homebuyers so often that I thought, why not bring on an expert? Today I have with us is David Sidoni. He's North America's leading advocate for first-time homebuyers. He is the founder of How to Buy a Home platform, which focuses on educating and empowering this ignored sector, peeling back the curtain to reveal the insider secrets of the home buying process. He is an industry disruptor. He is taking on big real estate by focusing on the consumer's actual needs, which we need so badly. He's like my moving soulmate. He has over 1.7 million downloads on his podcast, which is called How to Buy a Home Podcast, and it is the #1 first-time homebuyer educational podcast. David Sidoni, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It was about 2 years ago. There's 2 Australian ladies that do the same kind of thing that I do.
Yeah.
And when I found their podcast, we called each other our spirit animals. So you are my U.S. moving spirit animal.
I love it. Well, you and I have had a call already, and we talked a lot about kind of how just important it is to like be a guide, and just for no other reason than it is so complicated and complex, and there's so many things to think about. So what inspired you to start How to Buy a Home and just focus on brand new home buyers? Because we've had some real estate people on the podcast. I know you know that. And they don't necessarily want to work with a first-time home buyer because it's so hard. You have so many questions. So what inspired you to work with them?
It's a combination between, mostly it was a passion project and a labor of love, but then it was also a kind of third act of my life where I realized I was in a position to give back.
Yeah.
And then the last piece of that combination was really understanding the industry and what was massively lacking.
Yeah.
So 12 or 13 years into real estate, when I started back in 2005, and then 2006 is when I got my license, the market crashed right after that.
Oh,
I'm in Southern California and I'm by Disneyland.
Ooh.
I worked there, high school and college.
Nice.
So all my friends, when the market crashed, went, woohoo, I could finally afford a home.
Yeah.
So it's Southern California. It ain't cheap.
Which, I don't know if you know this, but I actually worked at Disney's Orlando location. So that is another reason you're my moving spirit animal.
Oh, my gosh.
I love it.
Well, I think we're at like over 280 transactions with the people at Disneyland now. And my partner who runs the team Boots on the Ground, we both worked in entertainment at Disneyland too. Crazy.
Oh, my gosh. I love it.
So after doing that, it's kind of the way you're supposed to do the business in real estate. You're supposed to work with first-time home buyers at first, and then you move past that because that's the low thing on the totem pole. You don't want to do that anymore if you're good.
Right.
So then 10 years of doing the job, and one day my wife just looks at me. I'm managing a team. I've got all kinds of buyer's agents, and she goes, "You're only happy when you work at the Disney people." And I went, all right.
Disney people are happy, though.
They're and you want to make a happy person exuberant? Hand them keys.
Yes. The keys to the kingdom, so to speak.
Yes. Oh, that is such an inside Disney joke for all of you.
I know.
But yeah, by helping people achieve what they want to do, sure, everyone in the, what I call big real estate's telling me you don't want to do that, hand that off to the new kids, the rookie agents. I realized what a incredible disservice and a gigantic amount of disrespect that was being given to people, that this is the largest financial transaction of their life.
Yeah.
And the more I understood real estate, the more, I've seen stats that show that last year, anywhere between 47 and 74 agents did not sell one home, 0 homes.
Oh, wow.
And I knew this when I started this.
Yeah.
And so the biggest piece of what I was doing was avoid the crap. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
I felt like, I'm going to age myself, I felt like Good Will Hunting. It's not your fault. Because it's not. And today's buyer is so much more savvy and so much more research oriented that they end up, because they don't find the right thing, they end up doing all of it on their own. And then I don't want to say they're doing it wrong. I say they're not doing it as well as they could.
Yeah. Efficiently and effectively, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that there's this analysis paralysis out there too, because everybody's got an opinion, right? And you could talk to 4 different real estate agents and they'll give you 4 different ways to do it. None of them could be wrong, but there's just when you're first time taking all of the terms in, all of the, like, what does this mean? Even just, an attorney and working with an attorney and how their whole process is different as well. Like, that's a lot to take in, and you assume that you're being protected. And if you're a newer real estate agent, they might be missing things. Like, I know I certainly had some experiences that I was like, oh, I wonder if it's, I was giving somebody a chance because they were newer into the market, but also like, what didn't they tell me that I probably should have known, and that's like the worst feeling in the world, because you don't know what you don't know,
And you have the choice. As a buyer, you have the choice at who can be your representation. And the biggest peel back of the curtain is, in California, it's about 3,000 hours to be a cosmetologist, and you have an apprentice whole system. It's about 40 hours open book to get a real estate license.
Wow.
The person that you pick, and again, those stats, 87% of agents quit in 5 years.
Wow.
The brokers know that. They understand that a lot of people are doing it part-time and as a hobby, but they make more money off the newer rookie agents. The broker gets 50% of the split. So that's the system. It sucks. Great. Let's get on the solution side of that.
Yeah.
First, over-educate the people. So I just gave everything away for free.
Yeah.
And
we talked about this isn't about the money. This is like legit. That's priceless right there.
I'm not trying to, there are other people that will say, we have realtors all over the country for you, just like Zillow does.
Yeah.
Those realtors pay for that slot.
Wow.
They're not vetted, and they pay a monthly subscription to be thrown in front of your face online. So what I did was took a few years and vetted a bunch of people. I have fired more people than I actually recommend.
Yeah.
But I also say, learn it all here.
Right.
And then here's how you go interview an agent if there's nobody that I know in your area, or if you want to interview other people.
Yeah.
And the number one mistake, which is probably a question that you've got because everyone asks me, the number one mistake is that people spend way too much time researching interest rates and how to buy a home themselves, negotiate how they should write their offer. Way more time on that than they do interviewing the realtor, who then will connect them to a few different lenders, and then build their team first and plan with them for a year.
Well, a lot of people don't know that they can do that. And I think that with the new NAR rules, so if you're not familiar, you have to sign a contract with the real estate agent, which is awesome for us as like a consumer, because you can interview then without actually signing a contract and using, use that as like how, what are you going to do for me as your, as your real estate, representation. That's a really good opportunity for you to take that time and interview. Cause you're right. Like everybody's got a friend and you almost feel bad, like, oh, this person introduced me to this person. And, I remember getting introduced to somebody because I was moving to a new city. I didn't question it. I just assumed that they were good, but my vibe and my feeling and the energy that I was getting from this person just wasn't great, you know? And so I felt bad at that point because it was like a friend of a friend and I was good friends with that person. And, you know, so like, tell us more about that. There's got to be so many like misconceptions about starting their journey. Can you kind of go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think take some ownership.
Okay.
Hey, thank you so much for introducing me to your friend Steve. Here's my number. Have Steve call me. I'm going to set up an interview with him. Oh no, Steve's great. Like we do trivia every Thursday night.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know if you heard about this new lawsuit that happened, but you know, I've got to sign a contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to interview that person. That's number one. That's how you handle your friends with friends, because that problem that you talked about, huge problem that you're not going to find on the internet. The internet's not going to tell you, holy crap, everybody you know is going to try to push somebody on you.
Right.
Keeping in mind the fact that only 13% of these people are still going to be doing this in 5 years, because 87% are trying this out and quit in 5 years.
Yeah.
Don't you want your agent to be there 5 years from now to help you sell your home the next time?
Yeah, for sure.
So realize you're not looking for a needle in a haystack, but you are looking for 13 out of 100.
Okay.
And understand that understand the licensing process is as pathetic as I mentioned it to you.
Mm-hmm.
My 18-year-old in college who is scatterbrained as all get out, God love him. He could pass a real estate test tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Because it's like a DMV test.
Yeah.
You just got to know what to study.
Yeah.
I think in general, when you have that first interview with someone, have them email you what they're planning to do.
Mm.
And that way you have it in writing if you do sign a contract.
Because you can get out of the contract, right? It's just a matter of, I mean, I know I had to ask for a release, but I had to specifically ask for a release. And they were a little hesitant to do it. And I didn't realize when I signed the initial release, because we were just going to look at homes. It wasn't even like, I wasn't sure if I was going to actually buy, but they had written in there that I was locked in with them for a year. And that meant that, so what does that mean if you lock in with somebody? That means that if I were to leave them and go to a different real estate agent, then they're owed a portion of commissions if I buy something? Like, what does that mean?
So now we get into legal stuff, and I can only say so much.
Okay.
Read the contract.
Yep.
Understand.
Okay.
But I would say if there's any binding contract and you are not released from it, there will probably be some sort of concessions that are within that.
Okay.
That's why I said when you're done interviewing with someone,
Yeah.
get an email what they said they're going to do during that year. Okay. And then perhaps, hypothetically, if they don't follow up with those things, you have a paper trail of the things that you want to do, which might make getting out of it easier for you.
Got
hypothetically.
Got it.
But I'm not, and most importantly, I ain't no lawyer, gang.
Right. Right.
All right. But if they are doing what they said, you are under contract.
Okay.
Therefore, which is better for you.
Yeah.
Because you don't want a door opener. You want an expert that is your advocate. And when it comes to like the next level of what I'm trying to educate people is, these people don't get paid until they close on the home. Most of the time, the seller is still paying for the buyer's agent. The numbers have not changed that much since the lawsuit. In other words, what I'm saying is why it's like getting a financial planner to work with you once a month and do updates with you and check on you and never take a fee.
Yeah.
And why would you do it on your own with Google as opposed to with a professional? And then where the disconnect is I know you're a year out and you think I'm going to interview all my people once I've saved up 20%, which by the way, you don't need.
Yeah.
Interview all the people a year ahead of time. Just like go, you know what? February is a slow month at work. I want this to be my last lease ever.
Mm-hmm.
So interview all your people, get your people. And if they're not willing to work with you for a year and they're not willing to give you action steps, they're part of that 87%.
What are some other mistakes that are made that cost people money like that?
I think the biggest money costing can be looking at the home and looking for the sexy immediate deal.
Okay.
A lot of times there are people that are looking at and trying to get something so under market value and not realizing the long-term wealth that home is going to get you. You know, I had a doctor one time who said, you know, he was researching for a year and had all these plans. And when I hooked him up with what I call a unicorn realtor, the unicorn was like, okay, well, you can do this, that. And he was like, oh, I read this. I read that. Oh, I read that. And she's like, well, okay, right now this is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what happened to my client last week. That's not happening anymore. The stuff you read about, because the website's a year old.
Right.
And he goes, oh my God, I'm the WebMD patient.
He called his own BS.
So the biggest money saver you can make is to invest way more time hiring a person. You're hiring an advocate. Don't just think you're getting someone to open the door for you and a lender who just punches in the numbers.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, there's a gigantic trick. The price that you negotiate is your first negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you're going to have an appraisal that comes in. After that, you're going to have an inspection where you might ask for credit. In California, it's 17 days. That's your first negotiation. One of the money costing mistakes that I see is people negotiate way too hard for the price.
Yep.
And the reason is because they're not educated and they don't understand the whole system. If you're working with someone for a year, you understand that the day you write the offer and put that in, that's like one of 83 steps.
Yeah. Yep. The house that I live in now, I moved it to Chicago, and in the next upcoming episodes, I'm going to talk through kind of what all happened. I had some crazy stuff happen, but even just looking at it from a mortgage perspective, a couple people told me, like, date the rate, marry the house, like find the right house that's going to fit where you want to be, like the people around you, like what it has inside of it. Like me, I needed an amazing kitchen with a lot of cabinets because I didn't have a lot of cabinets in my last place. And boy, did I get it. I love it. But that's the thing, is that like my initial offer, when they came back, because I was getting out of a lease and I had asked for seller credits because we were having some plumbing problems. Now, luckily, I have an uncle who's a plumber. He had given us a really reputable company to work with. They came out, we did a lot of plumbing inspection. I mean, it was the best money I've ever spent because, I mean, I'd have to add it up, but I probably paid between the initial plumbing inspection and then the follow-up plumbing, rodding, all of the inspections that I had to do, like the camera snaking and all that stuff. I probably paid $1,000 for that. But what I did was get seller credits to, I didn't negotiate down the cost of the house very much, like $4,000 or $5,000, but I got $10,000 worth of seller credits for me to keep that money in my pocket for when I have to replace some plumbing things. Cause I live in a very old historic district that has a ton of trees. So I know I'm going to have to rot it out again, if not replace some of the plumbing under the house because it's a slab. So I prepared myself for that. Like I was like, okay, negotiating down the price, another $5,000 was going to really save me like $30 a month. But what I really wanted was that long-term investment that I needed to look at. And that's what I did. And they were all in for it. Like they were like, yep, that makes sense. Thank you. And by keeping that price up, it raised everybody around me's value of their home, which also helps me, right? So people don't think about that. They just want like the monthly payment, I think sometimes is like the zoned in focus, which is important, right? But I mean, what that plumbing could have cost me if I didn't do those inspections, I'd be standing in water every time I took a shower, So
$30 a month versus $10,000 liquid
yeah.
is probably one of the number one things that I want to help illuminate and reveal to people. One of the number one fears I hear from people is being house poor.
Yeah.
You're way more house poor if you're paying $30 a month versus having $10,000 in the bank, or $30 a month less, but having zero in the bank.
Yeah. Explain that concept, house poor. Because if somebody hasn't bought a house before, it might be a new concept for them.
Cool. A lot of people say they don't want to put all their money into the home, deplete their savings, and then make their payment. Now, if you're renting and you're living paycheck to paycheck, then house poor isn't really for you. House poor is for people that maybe have a little bit of savings while they're renting, and they want to make sure that they still stay liquid at some point in their life. And that's the reason why they don't jump. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot is, over the last 6 years now, helping people. We're in a different world than we used to be in.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a little bit of flexibility on understanding if you don't move because you don't want to put your savings into a home and do what I call a rent replacement strategy, then you're going to end up being not house poor. You're going to be 40 years old and be poor.
Yeah. Well,
because you will have,
I was going to say, everybody thinks you have to put 20% down, but you don't.
Average first-time home buyer was 7% in 2023, 8% in 2024.
Wow.
And that's taking into account the people who maybe got an inheritance or a gift and put the 20% down. Almost every single one of the thousands of first-time homebuyers that we work with are using 3.5%, or 5% down.
Yeah, I did 5% to keep the money in my savings.
I have people that come to me all the time, and they're like, I want to put 20% down, but if I do that, I'm going to be house poor because we barely have enough for the down payment of closing costs. Yeah. And I go, cool. Well, what if we put 10% down? Oh, no, then I'm going to get PMI. Well, that's why I have an episode called PMI is Not the Devil.
Ah, I love that. Because you build up to the PMI. Like, you can get the PMI removed. Yeah.
PMI is a privilege. If you're buying a $400,000 house and you're waiting to save $80,000, well, when you're sitting there with $50,000 in the bank, how much longer is it going to get you to save the other $30,000?
Right.
So then you look at the price of costing of buying the home today with $50,000 in the bank versus 20% down. Well, at 10% down, the PMI is going to cost you like $100, and the loan's going to be about $500 more
a month.
So a month,
$100 a month, yeah. Okay.
So you're looking at $600 a month. But what you've just done, you're paying $600 a month to yourself to give yourself $30,000 in the bank.
Because house prices are not going to go down; they're going to continue to rise up.
I'm going to nerd out for you because I'm the biggest real estate nerd.
I love nerds.
On my show, I've been saying it for 6 years. And I just say it with me now. And everyone says, low inventory. The number one reason why house prices are going to continue is because since the beginning of time, back since the 80s, we were building 1 million to 1.2 million to 1.3 million homes per year. The only time that we got to below 1 million, I'm sorry, I said the only time we got below 1 million, and most importantly, to 550,000 or 600,000 homes was 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Wow.
5 times we've been below. That put us below. And a Redfin report just came out yesterday that said that we are between 2.4 and 7.2 million homes short of what we need. Supply and demand.
Oof. Yeah.
Supply and demand. I'm not saying they're going to skyrocket again like they did in 2022.
Right.
But we will not have a crash. Home prices are going to keep going up. So create a rent replacement strategy, get in the game. Yeah. But all this stuff we're talking about, people think that buying a home is like, at one time I said an analogy, like we're walking into Target and we all have $100. Who can get the best deal?
Yeah.
You're walking into Target and everyone's pockets, they might have $100, but one person's is all in change and half of it's in rubles and euros. The other person has a pocket full of concepts and ideas of where they're going to get $100 and mom and dad going to help them and someone that's going to loan them some of that money. There are so many individual options. And then we got to tack on, what do you want? Why are you buying this?
Yeah.
What's your personal goal? Because when I, as your team, understand your personal goals, that's where we figure out, okay, maybe you will get this place because it has the monster kitchen you want. And maybe you will do it now when rates are at 7% and not worry about it. Because if rates go down, you can refinance. But most importantly, you have the kitchen that you want. And if you rent it here for a year at $2,000 a month, your $2,500 a month is $25,000 that you gave to nobody.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a way to calculate? I know it used to be when the rates were lower, it was like $500 for every $100,000 that you borrowed. Is there some general calculation now that because I had dinner with a friend the other night and she's paying over $2,000 a month for a 500 square foot studio. What could she afford if she took that $2,000 a month and bought if she had the savings?
That is, yes, that is the beginning of a 45-minute conversation. Ooh. Because what you told me, if I was helping that person, you told me was just what she spends.
Yeah.
And,
Ooh, so tell me more about that.
okay, what's her debt? What's her savings? What's her income? What's her potential job in the future? Oh, most importantly, how long does she think she want to live there? Now let's go to the personal side of things.
Yeah.
How long do you think you want to live in this place with this 500 square foot apartment? Maybe you need to move. If you do, I know an awesome podcast you should listen to. And then let's dig into your debts. Let's dig into why your debts are there. Let's take a look at your last 2 years' tax returns. Are you self-employed? We need to know 1,000 things. Now, the problem is everyone goes online and they read, if you do this, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you can do this means if you have zero debt,
Yep.
if you've had a steady job for the last 2 years, and they're saying that right now there was a Harvard study that like 21% of people are paying 50% of their income on rent.
Wow.
On rent.
I bet it's a mix of two. Because I know that the debts went up
50%
quite
just
a
on
bit.
rent and 20% on debt, and then they're living on 30%. So the old thing was it should be 30% of what you make goes towards
housing.
They do loans up to 48, 50%. And because people are renting at 40 or 50% of their monthly income, it needs to be a rent replacement strategy.
Mm.
So some of the numbers you can look at generally, I don't love to do this, but you just look at the interest rate.
Yeah.
So if it's 7, so the I in PITI, that's the new payment,
Okay.
principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Your I is going to put you $700. So, but then you got to put the rest together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where there is no simple black or white one-step app, punch a few numbers in to get it, because the taxes and insurance are going to be different everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's not 7, it's probably closer to 850, maybe 900 per $100,000 borrowed.
Okay.
But it also depends on you and your credit score.
Yep.
Your PMI changes based on your credit score. But all of this can be done with a guide, a real person, not an AI robot and not an algorithm on a website.
Yeah.
Because the real people will help you get into this.
My mortgage guy that I used, his name is Jeff Orrell. I'll give him a little plug here, out of North Carolina. He was my old neighbor. He was great because you can buy down the rate, and a lot of people don't realize that. But there's that level of, does it make sense or not, right? Like he had a whole entire spreadsheet for me that basically showed me, like, okay, if I buy down to this, like, this is how long it'll take me to recover that money. Like, is it worth it? And honestly, like, it wouldn't have been worth it for what it would have cost me to buy down even just half a point. So another part of that seller credit is when the rates drop, if they do. I mean, I doubt we're ever going to see the 2.8s again for a long time. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that if in the next year or two, if they even drop down a couple points, that would save me a little bit of money. You have to pay to refinance, but it would be worth it in the end because you would save it over 30 years. So that's another strategy too, that you got to really look at the numbers and see if it makes sense, because you're right. It's not just that, like, interest rate. You have all of the other things involved. Plus you have to pay for moving to get to that place, right? And you have closing costs, and you have to pay for an attorney to do the paperwork. You have to pay the title company to actually close on the title. Like, there's all kinds of things you have to pay for. So if someone is dreaming about home ownership, David, I'm scared to even ask, but what's like one thing or two things or 5 things they can do to start preparing that now? Like, if they want to buy in 2 years or a year, what do you suggest?
Well, the first part of the suggestion is just an interesting piece of data that I have over the last 6 years.
Okay.
Tens of thousands of people that have, this is my little passion project just to help people in Southern California. I just got tired of driving to the Starbucks by Disneyland.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd make a podcast, and I just have them listen to the podcast, and it'd be like, that's our first meeting.
Yeah.
So you learn all that stuff. And then we have a second meeting.
Yeah.
Oops, podcasts go everywhere, and people started calling me.
Yeah.
So.
And 1.7 million downloads later. Here we are. You still got stuff to talk about.
The data that I accumulated at the end of last year was 72% of the people that reached out to the How to Buy a Home folks here, and they talked to me, they said they were 12 to 24 months from buying. 72% of them of the people who said that,
Yeah.
were under contract in 3.2 months. So the top tip I have is that if you are a person who's listening to this podcast, or if you are a person that listens to my podcast, I'm telling you right now, you are at the top level of society.
Yeah.
Of the people who can buy a home, you're already at the top level, and you've already overthought this, and you should be talking to a pro right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if this podcast, was a Super Bowl commercial, I couldn't say that because 72% of the people out there weren't ready to go.
Right.
But if you're here, you're ready.
Yeah.
And you just don't know it because you don't know your options.
Yeah. And I think that that's part of it, is that like people spend more time planning a vacation than they do the next 20 years of their life. Right. And
Car.
Oh my gosh.
People spend more time shopping for a car people spend more time shopping for a laptop online or a car or a cell phone than they do shopping for their realtor.
Yeah. Yeah.
It should be 100 times more.
Totally. I remember having the conversation with my mom because she was moving to Tennessee and she was renting and she was paying. I mean, I was like, gosh, this is ridiculous. And mind you, this was, I think, 10 years ago when, the interest rates were lower and, we had gone through some stuff in the market. But that number, that like $500 for every $100,000 you can, buy, I was like, you're paying 3 times of what you could actually afford in a home. And she had savings and, she didn't want to live in a house. Because there are a lot of other things that you pay for as a homeowner, everything from, like I had to buy a snowblower the other day because I live in Chicago and, we were going to get 8 inches. And now after this podcast recording, I'm actually going to go out and use it because we got another 4 inches or so last night. But there's all these things that you have to pay for, lawn maintenance, all of the things, right? And looking at it from her perspective, she didn't realize that she could afford what she could afford and that, a townhouse, she didn't need very much. It was just her, a small townhouse in a cute little area with people around her age. She actually ended up saving money each month and putting it towards, like, now she's buying new windows that she'd been saving up for, a couple of years or whatever. But that's the thing, is that you don't know until you start having those conversations. And it's really important to have conversations with somebody that understands that you've never done this before and can walk you through it, hold your hand. Like with the moving podcast, the tips and tricks that I'm giving, sometimes for some people who have moved a lot, they're going to seem very elementary. But for somebody that's never had to make a big cross-country move and has a rubber band radius around their family, but's been dreaming about moving to Southern California, that was my story when I first started out. Like, I had no one to ask because nobody had left the area around where my grandparents lived. And I come from a freakishly large family, right? So I was like, I had one friend that had moved to San Diego, and I called her and I was like, and we had actually spent a lot of time doing karaoke in the city of Chicago together. And so like her and her husband had moved out there, and like all of the things, like I had to go to the Better Business Bureau to find a mover, and I ended up getting my stuff held hostage and calling them and saying like, I thought these were good movers. They were on your site, and they were like, well, call the FBI. I'm like, you call the FBI. Like, what are you talking about? They're like, no. There's actually a division of the FBI that you call and they assign you an agent, all that stuff. But like, I didn't know that. Like, how would I know that? The Google wasn't born yet. So I wasn't Googling anything, to help me understand that. So I think that, what you're doing is so incredibly important. And I think that just having the experience that you have, because you've been doing this like 19 years or 20 years or something like that, right?
Yeah. I just finished my 19th year in real estate.
So like having that kind of trust and like knowing that you've been through it all, probably. You've probably seen every situation you can possibly imagine, and you've probably done a podcast about it to help them through it. I think that what you're doing is like, oh, I love it, because it's just so important to be well educated. So when those things come up, it's not to say that it's going to be a deal breaker for you, but you just understand like, oh, this isn't that big of a deal, or, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. I need to take this seriously. I think that that's the part that people get scared of and they don't want to know what they don't know. So they don't even bother researching.
People ask me all the time, I've got over 310 episodes, and they're like, how do you do it? Like, didn't you just explain how to buy a house in like 25 episodes?
Right.
And I'm like, scroll through the titles.
Yeah.
You'll see.
You'll see.
No, that's the point of it, is that, I mean, we just closed on some first time home buyers that I've been working with from Disneyland for 5 years. Wow. We just closed on Friday, yesterday. 5
They're so
years
happy
because their life was changing. Yeah. I'm not saying we were looking at houses every weekend,
right?
But it was just sitting down, planning and replanning. And, you know, I didn't know about you when I started my podcast.
Yeah.
But I thought that there might be things like you. Yeah. And there was an early podcast I found called How to Money that are just two dudes in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they're just they always talk about the difference between frugal and cheap.
Yeah.
And I had Joel on my podcast early. He was great. And, but I went, oh, I'm just going to tell everybody what to do because, you know, in my mind, we both had like horror stories. Like yours was your stuff being held hostage, which is just so random, by the way.
Scary. Yeah.
Mine was, I had plenty of money in my 20s because I got lucky in my career. And I rented, and I spent $104,000 in rent in the 1990s. Oh, today's dollars, it's 250 something. Wow. And guess what I got when I was 28 years old and moved out of my fourth apartment?
What?
$1,500 for my security deposit.
Oh, that's the worst. I'm scared to even think, because I've lived in San Francisco, which I think my rent was, I mean, this was back in 2003. My rent was $2,200 a month.
Yeah.
And then I moved to New York City and I was paying about that as well. Like I don't even want to calculate how much I was paying in rent all those years that I could have like bought something. But it wouldn't have been smart for me to buy something back then because I was moving all over the country. Like I knew that I didn't want to stay in one city. I wanted to explore everywhere. And now I'm comfortable, you know, that I bought a place because I know I'm going to stay here. And I swear to you that I'm going to stay here for several years. I might not stay in this house particularly, but I do love the house and I want to stay in the area. So I think that if it is the right place and the right time to start exploring, not to say that you have to buy a place, just start exploring, arming yourself, because it's going to change the environment, the obviously like the economic climate's going to change. If we were to have another recession, you know, prices could fall on houses, right? So you might be able to buy one. Or if, you know, what the administration is touting as things are going to get better, then you might make more money and be able to afford a house. Like either way, you have to know what you're doing in order to even start entertaining that, right? So
I think the analysis paralysis right now is out of control. We're usually at average age of the first time home buyers 31 or 32 years old. Last year it was 38. And I get it.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is the sticker shock.
Yeah.
Well, I'm paying $2,000 a month in rent. It's $2,800 if I got a mortgage. I use this mortgage calculator. Well, first thing I'm going to say is mortgage calculators are garbage. Go talk to somebody who can do your whole debt to income ratio and everything.
Right.
But then even when they get to that and they see $800 more, it's all they think about.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. And I'm like, oh my God, a 3% down payment might be just a little bit more than a first and last.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 12 months from now.
Yeah.
I know it's going to suck, $800 more, but here's it's hard right now, but it's not changing.
Right.
Rents have gone up double what they've gone up in the past.
Yeah.
2000s in 2000 to 2010 and 10 to 20, double. So when everyone talks about, you know, boomers bought a house for this, well, they had a lot more expendable income.
Yep. Yeah.
So one of the big things that I want to make sure that people understand is that $800 difference. The hardest a higher mortgage payment is going to be is the first 3 years.
Okay.
It stays fixed and your income will go up.
Yeah.
If you're a renter right now, 3 years ago, how much was your rent? What if your rent today was that?
Wow. Yeah.
That's what owning a home is like. So if it's $800 difference today,
yep.
Next year, technically, it's really $650 because your rent went up $150.
Yeah.
If you'd stayed there. I talked to someone whose home is up 11% 2 years ago. His home is up 11% in value on a $400,000 home. So that's a nice chunk of change.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the rent in the place he was at is up $450.
Wow. You know, one of the things that I used when I was trying to calculate whether I should, because I knew I was going to do a city POC, which if you've listened to the podcast before,
I
It's
love it.
doing a proof of concept in the city that you want to buy in, right? Or move to for at least, I say at least 5 days because everything's sexy over a weekend, right? You're not going to see any of the good stuff you're not going to see any of the bad stuff. If you can go somewhere for a month and, swap out, maybe have somebody, I would love to build a community of people that can swap out their places. Like if somebody wants to live in New York City and somebody's, wanting to live in Southern California, they can share, they could swap places for a month and,
Yeah.
But one of the things that I put in the new Moving for Smarties ebook that I'm releasing is a link to Laura Makes Moves website and what she did. So Laura Sinclair is a friend of mine. She is my moving buddy. That's in there, like connecting with somebody who can help you through the emotional turmoil of a move because it's crazy. You know that. But one of the things that she created was rent or buy. And it's like a whole calculation of, like what mortgage, what your amortization, I can never say that word, amortization down the road if you were to have rented for 5 years or bought for in those 5 years. And for what I was looking at the time, it actually was very similar because the rent in the place that I was moving to was so high it was lower. So whatever the calculation was, I wasn't going to lose a ton of money by renting for just 1 year to try it out, right? To try that city out. It was worth it for me. Now, had I bought right out the gates, I had a house that I was in the process of buying, and because of the inspection and the neighborhood, all of these factors, I ended up having to walk away from that house. But had I bought that house, like I would have been stuck. Like you lose money when you have to sell a house before 2 years if you make any money on that house. So there were so many things that I had to factor in that it was worth it for me to walk away and lose that earnest money and the inspection money. The inspection was really incredibly expensive for whatever reason because it was like a 1920s home. So you want to get the works because you're looking at trusses, you're looking at sewers, you're looking at the whole works. And I think I paid, I want to say the inspection was like $1,700. Like it was ridiculous.
That's a little pricey.
It was pricey. It was probably the most expensive inspection I had paid because like the one that I had here, I think was like $700 with that's more likely. That's probably more average. But anyway, the point of my story is that had I got into that house and realized it wasn't the right house for me, that would have been a very expensive mistake because now I'm locked into that mortgage. So I think spending the time talking to a good, educated, first-time homebuyer specialist, listening to your podcast, the How to Buy a Home podcast, and really arming yourself with the information you need. It is scary, but it's not that scary when you get into it. Like if you have somebody holding your hand, it's a lot easier than if you're going at it yourself, which you would never want to do, right? So
no, and I think that exploring a city, you can two-prong it. You can do the POC and you're going there to get the proof of concept. But if you're there somewhere for a year and like when you looked at those numbers and you went, okay, well, what if you fell in love with the city during that year?
Yeah.
So then instead of talking to a realtor that is going to be trying to talk you out of renting, like we have our unicorns all the time. They're like, cool, let me know when you're here or help them get a long-term rental.
Right.
Then when they're there, they sit down and go, okay, 12-month plan. What if we don't buy? Cool. You have a little extra money in your savings account.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, you're going to do that for us for free? Yep. And then all you do is you work on 3 things. That's the whole last lease ever that we do with people is you just work on your credit score, your debt, and your savings. And then you go back and listen to your podcast and they listen to how to explore the city, like same way we do for buying a house.
Yeah.
Don't just drive that place in the daytime. Drive it on a Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah. You walk your dog there at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I also love is when your savings. So how long on average does it take to buy a house? Isn't it like 2 or 3 months, like from start to finish? If it's, because
30 days, typically 30 days. And it's usually because of the lender.
Okay.
So if you're a cash buyer, you can buy in, we've done them in 5 days.
Okay.
But that's from the day of acceptance. Like you might put an offer in and there might be multiple offers and you could be in bidding wars for a week and a half.
Yeah. Well, and also it probably takes a month of like going out on the weekends and So I would say, like, if you are if you have a lease that's 1 year, think like 9-10 months in, you could be moving or you could be looking for a house to buy a house. And then for me, I will say that it has been incredibly important in the times that I have bought a house to move slowly. Like, I didn't have to be out on that one day. Like, being able to have, like, I was living in the city of Chicago and I was renovating a house in Orland Park, and I was able to live in my house, like live in the city while the house was being renovated. I didn't have to live through that renovation, right? It was nice. Even if you're just like pulling up carpets or putting, luxury vinyl plank in or,
Yep.
painting, like having that luxury of having a little bit of an overlap when you're buying that house to do things and get there slowly sometimes is awesome. And you're going to get that last month's rent back, right?
So many things to say about everything you just said. Okay. Number one, 4.5, 5 years into doing what I do, I sat down with a focus group with a bunch of millennials and I started talking to them about what's going on. And one of them raised her hand and she says, dude, this is when I effing hire you. I'm 8 months. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And so I sat with them and we created the Last Lease Ever program. And the idea is the day that you sign that lease and you're thinking 8-9 months, I'm going to look to buy.
Yeah.
Like, I seriously want to do like a meme of sign the lease, call and start interviewing realtors.
Yeah. You should.
Like, that's why it's called, I know. So that's why it's called the Last Lease Ever.
Yeah.
I just recently, speaking of memes, put one up the other day because someone closed on a house on, I think it was the 5th of February, and their first payment isn't until April 1st.
Oh, nice.
What a lot of people don't realize is that rent you pay forward. You pay on the 1st of the month for the next 30 days you're going to live there.
Mm-hmm.
When you buy a home, this is silly, but this is the little detailed stuff.
Yeah.
When you buy a home, if you close on the 7th, 8th, or 9th, part of your closing costs is to pay for the rest of that month. All the days left of February. March 1st comes around, you don't pay. April 1st, you pay the mortgage company backwards for the March months. So many times, the day you get your keys, you're going to get 7 weeks of paychecks before you make that first mortgage payment. Because the first part of it, you've already paid, as you've already saved for it as part of your closing costs, especially if you've been working with someone for a year. But then I have 2 or 3 different podcasts about should you break your lease? Yeah, the $2,000 you're going to pay versus last year, homes went up 4.5%.
Yeah.
So if someone came to me in February and they could have bought in April, but they waited till November because their lease was up there. Cool. Your $400,000 home went up $16,000. Glad we saved $2,000 on the lease.
Yeah.
But that's individual for everybody. Yeah. But the biggest thing we do is we explain that 7-week thing to people and we overlap like a mother.
Yeah.
And we're like, you know what? I had one person go, my brother has a pickup. So yeah, I had to pay an extra, 2 weeks on my apartment, but I saved $4,000 in mover because I moved 3 boxes a day for 4 weeks.
Yeah. I actually ended up, you really, if you're going into that strategy, I would highly suggest you looking at the lease itself and calculating how much it would cost you, because I ended up having to pay $9,000 to break my lease. However, I got to live in the place for those couple months while I was I knew I was going to be leaving. So I was able to spend some time finding the home. I knew the minute I walked into this place, it was my house. I mean, it was just everything about it, just how I felt. I could picture my future dog in here, all the things. So I knew I wasn't even really looking anywhere else, but it was important for me to break that lease because I knew that if I waited, because I closed on December 26th, which is my birthday, and it's also Boxing Day. It's ironic that I was born on Boxing Day and I'm a moving coach.
Oh my God. Wow. I'm sorry. It's my wife's birthday too. That's crazy.
No way.
Yeah.
That is
wow.
Crazy. Capricorns rule.
Boxing Day for moving. That's awesome.
A relocation strategist. Yes, that is right. That's my new title. I'm calling myself a relocation strategist because
nice.
It's literally you have to have some good strategies, but that was part of my strategy. I was okay breaking the lease because I knew that if I waited till the spring, they could have either rented this place out because it had been sitting on the market for 60 days, or the prices would have gone up because in the spring, everybody wants to buy a house. They don't want to do it when you're trekking through snow, right?
Yeah. Exactly. No, the spring is the giant time. I mean, that's what I just did a podcast right now saying, remember last September when I told you the window was September to March 1st?
Yeah.
All the data came out and it showed it. The best time to have bought a home was December and January, December 2024 and January.
Yeah.
Sellers were giving the most concessions.
Yep.
Homes were staying on the market longer. And in the last just 2 or 3 weeks, we're starting to see more listings come out, but the demand is increasing as well.
Interesting.
But this is why I need to get you on my podcast too. Because here's what's going on. So you've got all your personal stories, which are helping people.
Yep.
And then like I have all the data. So you had the $9,000 thing, but it just reinforces what I talk about, that if you're talking to a professional and you've looked at everything, that might make sense to you.
Yep.
I have data that shows that over the past 3 or 4 years, read your contract. You're totally correct. I've had more people call their landlords and their landlords are like, woohoo. Yep. Cool. I will break it. You know what? It's free.
Yeah.
Just get out as soon as you can, because they're going to raise it $800.
Yeah.
So $9,000 maybe, but you don't know what you don't know if you don't call.
Right. And in my defense, that the rent was expensive at this place. It was a luxury apartment complex.
Oh, totally.
I mean, I had a coffee shop in the building. I mean, I knew that if I was going to rent for a year, I wanted it to have all the things. Like the gym is better than like the Planet Fitness, right? So that was in my defense.
No, I do everything on the podcast at $400,000. So let's say you're renting, the average rent for that is $2,000.
Yeah.
So let's say they're going to charge you $4,000 to move if you break your lease early, a couple months.
Yeah.
Or $2,000 and you're going to lose your deposit. Yeah. Cool. I've had people call and they've gone, if they're trying to move in the spring and summer, this busy season we're talking about, landlord also wants to rent spring and summer.
Yep.
And he's super stoked about it. Or maybe that is near a college and they're like, hey, good, we got to get them out and we're going to renovate over the summer and then charge double when the semester comes around because mom and dad are going to pay for it. Yeah. There's all that stuff that can happen. And, there are major needs that are not being addressed. Yeah. And one is how to plan to buy a home. Mm-hmm. I mean, if my podcast had a real name, that's what it would be.
Yeah.
How to plan to buy a home. Don't WebMD it and try to listen to my podcast so you can do it all on your own. And the moving part, I think people think it's just call a truck. And it's like, whoa. This remote world that we're living in and the service that you're offering is so incredible.
Oh, thank you.
And people can and should realize that there's help to do it and try it. And then while you're there, rents aren't changing.
No.
So start a strategy. I say it all the time. What's the worst thing that happens if you start planning to buy a house and you decide not to? Right. You have some savings.
You got some
savings.
Your
credit score is better.
Yep.
And your debt is under control. Yep. Maybe not down, but maybe you just know how it works.
Right. Yeah, what I ended up doing was I rented a 2-bedroom apartment. So I had an office, a guest bedroom, and then, my bedroom. And I put the rest of my stuff in storage because it cost me $100. Like, kudos to U-Haul, Noblesville. I absolutely loved working with them. I think I paid $150 a month. I ended up getting 2 units because I ended up paring down. I liked having like a clutter-free place. But because I had owned a home, I have 2 amazing egg chairs that like are gigantic that like I will never, ever, ever sell them. I've had so many people offer because they're so comfy. But I had, I had a grill and I had, my outdoor like grill table and I had a patio table and all those things that I don't need in an apartment. I couldn't fit in there. That was part of my strategy. Like I'm going to go completely minimalistic. I'm going to put a lot of my stuff in storage and be able to have, like I lived right off the Monon, which is like a little hiking trail. I could jump on the Monon and walk half a mile and I was downtown Carmel, Indiana, which is a super cute little historic area. So like that was part of my plan. Like if I'm going to get to know the city and I'm going to fall in love with the city, I want to put myself in a place where I can do that. And after 3 months, I was like, it is a great place to live if you have a family and it's an adorable little city. But I was coming back to Chicago every week or every other week. I mean, I think I came back to Chicago 6 times in the 3 months. And I was like, you know what? My people are here. I realized that I wanted to be closer to everybody in my community and my corporate headquarters. And it made sense. So, it was a great strategy and it only cost me that $9,000 break-in lease.
I hate to use the words, but the American dream has changed a lot.
A lot.
we're not going to the picket fence anymore. And when I hear the average age is 38, I mean, how many 33, 34-year-olds do you know that have their stuff together?
Right.
Probably, and so I understand why maybe they're not on it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a ton of 28-year-olds that have been 4 years on a job, and they're probably going to stay there for another, 2 or 3. And if they lose it, they're going to get another one. In other words, there are plenty of people that at least if you have never had a threat of being evicted and you're renting in Chicago for $3,000 a month, there's a lateral move for you to do condo, apartment, townhome.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's $800 more a month, don't think about $800 more a month. Think about $3,000. It's a replacement strategy. Your $3,000 a month goes to nothing.
Yeah. Somebody else's pocket.
Yeah. And condo townhome living, once you do it, we've had a lot of people that have done that. Mm-hmm. They've made a lateral move because they figured out this city was more for them in their single life.
Yeah.
And then 2 or 3 months after they move in, especially with a condo, a townhome, or an apartment.
Yeah.
Because they've been planning for a year, we go, cool, let's do it again. And they're like, what? And we go, no, you're going to do 2 things. You're going to call that same team that you've been working with for a year, and you're going to do plan 1 and plan 2. Plan 1 is I'm going to use the equity in this house and sell it to buy my next one. Mm-hmm. Plan 2 is this is the world's most greatest rental. I'm going to be wealthy for the rest of my life, and I'm going to keep this.
Yeah.
Now, you don't do the same savings.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were saving $1,000 a month, maybe you save $50 a month.
Yeah.
And if you were working on your debt, cool, let's keep working on that.
Right.
And your credit score is probably awesome because you did it.
Right.
And now it's going to get even better. So now we're just going to, because you're a mortgage owner. But there's that entire, I think that people who are 32 years old and rent in Chicago for 5 years and spend $36,000 a year in rent and then decide to buy.
Yeah.
God, if they just bought a condo and then they'd done both of these things again and kept saving.
Yeah.
And then when they were 38, instead of buying their first time, they're buying their second time, and they're doing it for 3% down. Yeah. And they're keeping that place that they bought for $400,000 that's now worth $500,000, and they're renting it for more than their mortgage. Oh my God.
Wow.
I don't like to get into all, because there's 1,000 podcasts about that.
Yeah.
My whole thing is, here's what's wrong with the first part of the process.
Yeah.
Let me fix it. But that's the options.
Yeah. It's a strategy, right? That's the strategy. So I have absolutely loved this conversation. I know we could talk for another 2 hours. I promise I will come on your podcast and we will talk about even more things.
I can't wait.
Oh my gosh.
I can't wait to pick your brain.
I got lots in there. Tell us how they can find you, David.
howtobuyahome.com. Everything is there. The podcast is called How to Buy a Home. YouTube is called How to Buy a Home. Instagram is called How to Buy a Home Podcast because some idiot won't give me How to Buy a Home and he hasn't been on since 2018. But everything's at howtobuyahome.com.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I know this information has been incredibly valuable, and I cannot wait for the next time I talk to you. Have a great day, David.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's tips and tricks. Jump on decidingtomove.com to apply for a free on-air coaching session or join the newsletter to get your copy of the Moving for Smarties workbook. Oh, and the legal stuff. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm a certified coach, not a licensed therapist, and this is not meant to replace the professional advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or real estate agent. I do not own a moving company or work for the governing agencies transporting home goods, which means Mariette's on the Move LLC is not responsible for anything that happens during your move. This is solely my perspective based on my research and my own experience and training. So, move at your own risk. Bye for now.